Well, hello. Thank you for joining me today. My name is Tanya, and I'm here to show you some exciting products from Peddler's Den and our Makin' a Scene collection. At Peddler's Den, we design and manufacture stamps, but I am best known for my Scenic stamping classes. I've been teaching Scenic stamping since the mid-1990s, but we've only been actually designing and manufacturing stamps for about 2 years. The stamps that we design and manufacture, even though they are designed to be used in the scenic genre, can also be used very traditionally. So if you don't want to do scenic stamping, if you'd rather just stamp it, one and done, add some die cuts, our images work for that as well. Our stamps are sold unmounted. So you will get rubber, red rubber, high quality red rubber, and when you get them you're probably going to have to trim them. We recommend using rubber scissors to do that. Rubber scissors look something like this. There's several brands out there, but normally they have the big handles and they've got the short, very sharp blade. This allows you to maneuver into tight places when you're trimming things out. Other scissors may work okay for you, but cutting a lot of rubber is going to be rough on those scissors, so I would recommend not using scissors that you use for sewing or something of that nature. This is the Kai brand. We do sell these. Now, if you're not used to using plain rubber, you probably aren't quite sure how to do it, and there are several choices. The first thing that we're going to show you is our new product, which we call Grip It. The Grip It is a clear mounting mat that is tacky on both sides. You can remove it from your acrylic blocks, you can use it in your platforms, but basically you put it on your block. It does have some cushioning properties. So in the old days when we used wood, we always had a cushion between the rubber and the wood. The Grip It and Tack and Peel, which I'll show you in a moment, both give you some of those same cushioning properties. Then you just take your rubber and you put it on there and voila, you stamp. Now the Grip It, we've been testing prototypes for about 2 months. The Grip It, when it first came, it doesn't feel very sticky. And I was concerned about that. I was afraid that it wouldn't stick to the blocks well. I was afraid that it wouldn't hold the rubber. In the 2 months that we've been using it, we haven't dropped any stamps, and they really do not feel like they're hooked on there very well. And yet it seems to perform well. So you've got the ability to move it, and you've got the ability to use it in platforms. It will get dirty, and if it does, our preliminary testing has shown that you can safely clean it with the Ultra Clean Stamp Cleaner. Now I am going to talk a moment about Ultra Clean. If you want only one stamp cleaner in your craft room, Ultra Clean really is the best choice. It will take any ink off of any stamp safely. This is important if you use things like StazOn, and I use quite a lot of StazOn, because if you use StazOn cleaner on some stamps, it will actually melt them. I did this, so I know firsthand that it can. The nice thing about Ultra Clean is it has a little bit of an oil base, and the oil does continue to condition your red rubber. And the Ultra Clean is something that I use routinely to also clean my Tack and Peel, and preliminary results have shown that it works well on the Grip It as well. You have to remember, we have not had the Grip It very long, so we don't know what the lifespan is going to be or anything else, but preliminary testing has shown it works really well. The other product that I'm very fond of is Tack and Peel. Now, Tack and Peel has a lot of the same properties of Grip It. It's transparent. You put it on your block. This block has tack and peel on it. You put it on your block, you put your stamp on it. It has some depth, it has some cushion to it. But the big difference between the grip it and the tack and peel is that you put the tack and peel on your block and it remains there. I use the word permanently, which is misleading. You can take it off. It will eventually wear out, and when it does, you'll remove it. If you don't like it, you can remove it and throw it away. You get one sheet that's about 4 inches by 6 1/4 for about $10.95. So it's not something that you're going to put on and take off flippantly. You can see that as you're stamping with it, it gets dirty. And when it gets dirty, we use the Ultra Clean, we spray it on. I usually massage it in a little bit. It tends to pull out the ink and pollutants. Water rinse it, let it air dry, and it will be just as tacky as it was when it was brand new. Now, I purposely took the grip it and purposely made sure I got it really, really inky. And then I washed it the same way with the Ultra Clean. It cleaned it up beautifully and it didn't seem to harm anything. So after using it for 2 months, I'm pretty confident in saying that this is going to work well. What is the lifespan of grip it? We don't know that yet. The tack and peel lasts a very, very long time. The very first block I put it on, I was the only one that used that block, but it lasted me about 15 years. Now, the blocks that I use in my classes and what have you wear out much quicker because of the use and the abuse. Another choice that you have is Aleene's Tack It Over and Over. This looks a lot like Elmer's glue. When you put it on your stamp, you just squirt a little on the back of the stamp. I take my finger and I just rub it around. I spread it real thin. It will be white. It will look just like Elmer's glue. When it is completely dry, it will be transparent, and at that point you can use it. It will also temporarily attach your rubber to your acrylic blocks or your platforms. It will, by putting it on and taking it off, it will pick off. If you examine the back of your rubber, you'll see where little pieces of it have come off each time you use it. This means that eventually, if you use your stamps a lot, you will have to reapply it. The other thing is it does tend to leave a little, pieces behind on your platform or on your acrylic blocks. I have not noticed it creating any long-term problems, but it is annoying. So that's the Tack It Over and Over. The other choice, of course, is to hand mount your stamps using cling foam. And this is expensive and time-consuming, but it still is a choice. The grip it comes in 2 sizes. We have our large size is designed to fit a 4x6 block. The small size is designed to fit a 3x4 block. These are 2 of my favorite sizes of blocks. The large one, you can take your rubber scissors and you can cut it if you'd like to fit other size blocks. I also like 2-inch by 8-inch blocks a lot. And if you cut this in half, you could use that on your long skinny blocks. You can cut it up and use it on your teeny tiny blocks. So it gives you those options as well. Now, the Making a Scene line originally was very traditional images. So these are scenes that Janet McGilvery, one of my design team members, have made. These just came in the mail recently. And you can see where this is a very traditional scene. You've got the mountains, the boats, the trees, and what have you. We have a lot of Midwest art. There seemed to be a lack of Midwest art when we started designing and manufacturing. And so we have a lot of Midwest barns, chicken coops, farm animals, and other things that are not limited to the Midwest, but the Midwest is known for those things. So we have a lot of that imagery in our line. Here's another one with some of our sheep and one of our other barns. We have things like eagles. Our line is very, very diverse. We have a lot of different categories, and we are always building more. Today, what we're going to look at is one of our newest ones. This is our newest fantasy line. It includes lots of fairies and friends. These can be used traditionally. They're sized so that the fairy can be used traditionally with layering and die cutting and what have you, or you can actually build scenes with them. If you're a scene builder, we have fairy huts. This one's kind of fun. You can see that it actually has a swing. We have fairy villages. Lots of different fairy images, of course, in different poses. Each character has its own name. This is one of my favorites. This is Echo. But we have flora and fauna too. This is one of the trees that grows in our fantasy land. Our fantasy land is called Utopia World. And here are some of the interesting plants that also grow in Utopia World. Here is a sample of one of the cards that I made that involves a use of our Scenic Elements stencils. It involves a lot of blending and dragging of the ink. This is a little bit advanced, and this is a very, very simple version of the same thing. So today we're gonna look at some of the things that we've done in some of our shows recently. This was the mini class that we did at our last show. It involves using our Scenic Elements stencils. We used one of them for the moon. We used another one for the foreground. It includes one of our fairies from our Utopia World collection. And other than using some colored ink, this does not involve any coloring. This is a mini class that we do in our booths. You can do it in 10 minutes, 15 at the most. And we're going to kind of walk through it to give you an idea of how to do this and how to use our Scenic Elements stencils. The Scenic Elements stencils were created because I wanted some scenic elements, but I was concerned that people would have trouble using them. So for instance, we use a lot of moons coming up and going down in our scenes. Initially, I was going to do a solid stamp that was squared off on the edges, had a horizon line, and had a moon cut out. Well, most of you know that using big solid image stamps can be very problematic. Some of you use platforms, and that's a workaround. That gives you the ability to stamp over and over until you get it colored in the way you want it. But at the end of the day, it would take a lot of our engraving space, it would take a lot of our plate space, it would take a lot of rubber, it would be difficult to use, and I wasn't comfortable with that. So instead, I began developing Scenic Elements stencils. We have several different moon ones now that we're using, but we also have landscape ones. This one is from our Distant Mountains set, but you can see that that can be used in a foreground. Like this. I don't know if you can see that. I guess you can. The landmass here that the lighthouse is sitting on. Right there we have it. So a lot of the big solid things that we're using in our images now, we're not stamping, we're not freehanding, we're actually using our Scenic Elements stencils, and they are working so well, and people are loving it because it is fast and it is easy. So getting back to this one, On this one I used one of our moon cutouts. You can see how that fits right over that moon. Some of our moon stencils are shaped like this so that you can put them on your card. You can have your moon off center, you can have your moon in the middle. To secure them, the best thing to secure them with is the purple tape. Now, some people want to use painter's tape, and certainly you're welcome to use whatever adhesive you want. Some people don't use any adhesive at all, they hold them with their hands, and certainly that's fine too. But when and if you use tape, I will tell you that I have ruined cards with this. I tried it because my customers are always asking me, will it work? And I always want to have an answer for them, but I have ruined cards with it. If you're going to secure your stencils with tape, I really, really suggest that you use something that's actually made for that. So in this particular case, I wanted my moon offset a little bit, and I wanted a really big moon. So we're using our Yorktown blue ink. I'm using just a brush on this, and I see no reason not to just really be pretty brutal with this and just get that sky colored in. I don't worry about anything being blotchy, because if it is blotchy, it's going to look like clouds. And you can go over it as much as you want to make it as dark as you want it, but that's fine. Now for the foreground, we're going to use one of our Scenic Elements stencils. We can use any of them. This one, I think, is the one that we used on the original card, but we can use any of them. On this particular one, though, I wanted it to come down so that there was plenty of room for the fairy to be sitting. So the nice thing about the stencils is if you didn't want that pattern, you can rotate it like this. You can use it like that. Totally, totally up to you. Now with the stencils, I really like to use these daubers. We've tried the blending tips, we've tried brushes, we've tried all the different things, but I really like the daubers. So I'm going to get some ink here, and I'm going to just fill this up as dark and solid as I can, as fast as I can. And of course you can always go back later and add more too. Since I didn't take the time to tape this down, I have to kind of hold it and move my hand. Okay, good enough. Now, I will caution you, you should always take the time to kind of clean your stencil up, because there is ink on the inside edge of this stencil. And if you don't clean it, the next time you go to use it, you're probably going to get some lines that you really don't want. So now we're going to take our fairy, and we're going to ink her up. And I always examine to see if I've got the ink good enough or not. If it's a big stamp, it always works best to go like this. When you ink like this, you get actually a more even ink, and you don't run the risk of getting it on the edges as much as you do otherwise. So we're going to put her right here, and we're going to press firmly. We are working on our Peddler's Den semi-gloss coated cardstock. We want to press firmly without rocking, and we want to give that ink some time to migrate to the paper. Voila! Now, You probably can't see it, but I can see where those inks overlap. And at the end of the day, it really doesn't matter, but sometimes I'll take the time to kind of smooth them out while I'm here anyway. Now we need to put our trees in here. So we're going to take our tree line stamp and we're going to ink that up. All of my stamps are trimmed very, very closely. So by using a transparent block, I can really see where they are. Now, we want the base of the trees to kind of cover this area right here. So again, we're putting it down, we're pressing firmly, and we're not rocking, and we are giving the ink a little bit of time to migrate to the card. Voila! Now I'm going to remove this from my block, and instead I'm going to put my water pattern on. Now we have lots and lots of water patterns, but this particular water pattern is unique because when I created it, I created a beveled edge here and a ragged edge here, and I did that on purpose so that if you need to have a wide piece of water, what you can do is you can ink and stamp. I think I've moved out of the viewing pane. Hang on. Okay, I inked it and I stamped it. Now this bevel is designed to fit here. And you don't need to line them up precisely because the water pattern is that forgiving. What you don't want is you don't want a gap. So you want to make sure that it overlaps ever so slightly, and now you have a very wide water pattern. In the same vein, if I want to make it deeper, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to stamp it, overlapping ever so slightly, and then I'm going to go back. I'm going to put some here, and you can see how easy it is with this particular stamp to build water as wide as you might need it. So on this particular little card, the card is narrow, so we don't have to worry about that. So we're going to ink this up. And we're not going to worry about the fairy wings because if they're translucent, which they are, you would be able to see the water through them anyway. So I'm going to take this and I'm going to stamp it. Then, if you just repeat your stamp, your eye will begin to discern that pattern. So I'm actually going to flip it over so that my top became my bottom and my bottom became my top. And I'm going to stamp it again. And I'm going to keep doing that. Until I have filled in the water. So here's where we are now. And see how fast and easy this is? See how forgiving it is? Because we're stamping the blue on top of solid black images, you don't have to do any masking. Now to add a few finishing touches, I'm going to take our tree, I think this is called old tree silhouette. Now, you want to avoid getting the trunk in your sky. But a lot of our trees, you can use just the foliage area to help frame out your cards. See how nice that is? See the difference between this and this. And having some of that framing really helps to make it look complete and polished. It also helps to give you a little perspective, and it helps to draw the viewer in. So I'm going to close up my blue pad and set it aside so that I don't accidentally grab the wrong ink. And I'm going to ink my branches, again examining it to make sure I've got them properly inked. And then I'm going to take this and I'm going to add the branches up here in the top. Now, I always like my branches, or whatever my framing is, to be silhouetted in front of the moon. Do you see how nice that looks? I'm going to come over, add some here. See the difference that makes? Now, the fairy looks a little forlorn just sitting there. So to enhance the composition, we're going to add some reeds. So it looks like she's sitting on the beach amongst the reeds. And again, this is very forgiving. You can put as many or as few as you want. They're a solid image as well. Re-ink every time you want to restamp. And again, if it bothers you, because you've got black on black, and when it dries, and especially if you spray your work, it won't matter. But if you want to, so that you can't see that at all, you can kind of smooth the top layer of black out. And here is what we have, and you saw how fast and easy it was. This is an illustration as to why our Scenic Element stencils are so valuable to scenic stampers. This is a good example as to why silhouettes are invaluable. Of course, when it's all matted and framed out, it looks like this. Thank you for joining me today. It has been a pleasure. Again, here are some of the other scenes that we've made with some of our scenic elements and some of our fantasy world. I hope that you'll join us again here. I hope you'll check out our website, www.peddlersden.com. That's PEDDLERSDEN.com. And hopefully I'll see you at an upcoming show.